Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instructions on completing the task at hand. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to kick off the Tinker Day with doing the spark plugs on this BMW, I believe it's a F30 series. 2013 328i. It needs spark plugs. The owner's manual recommends that they replace every 100,000 miles. I've seen a parts place suggest they be done probably around every 60,000 miles. So that's your call. You do what you want on that. This video is kind of long, mainly because I ran into some issues removing the spark plugs, so I wanted to put that entire segment of the difficulties in the video just in case you ran into those issues. You could actually see how I overcame that stuff. So the video's long. Let's get started. First thing you should know is that the spark plugs are, I believe, iridium plugs. We got the spark plugs from BMW. They're about 20 bucks a piece. That's the number that we got. They're made in Japan. I believe they may come from NGK. But they have a preset gap from the dealer. You shouldn't have to gap them. This is what they look like. And there's 4 of them. This is a 4-cylinder vehicle. You could check the gap on there, see what that gap is. Now, the engine cylinder head does not have a straight shot to the plugs. So you have to pull the cover off, pull the insulator off, then you remove the ignition coil, which is relatively easy. If you look down in the hole, there's not a straight shot to the spark plug, and it's a real tight fit in there. So you need a thin wall socket. This one, I believe, is a 14 millimeter thin wall. That's the part number from Door Last. This is the kit that I bought from AutoZone. And it's a 14 and an 18 millimeter. They're both thin wall, very thin wall socket. So this is not a high torque application. They're thin wall. Also, you should know that as the spark plug hole goes down into the cylinder head, it makes a slight turn in at the tip of the spark plug. So you need either a pivot in your spark plug tool, which the one that BMW uses has a pivot there, or you could use a universal pivot in there. It's a 3/8 inch socket, so you could use a universal, or you need a swivel extension. But you can't just go straight on there and get it off. It has to pivot, take a slight turn when it gets down there, and plug onto the top of the spark plug. That's something that you need to know. Also, the back spark plug is under the firewall cowl, so you can either remove all that stuff, or you can manhandle that coil pack off and use just enough extension and spark plug socket to get that spark plug out. It can be taken out without removing that engine cowl stuff, but you are roughhousing it, manhandling it, so that's your choice which way you want to do it. I'm likely going to manhandle it out to show you how it's done with the minimum amount of parts removed. Here is your tool list that you need to do the spark plug replacement. You got to have a torque wrench capable of going down to 17 foot-pounds, 23 Newton meters. You might need a breaker bar. That's a 1/2 inch breaker bar. So I got a 1/2 inch adapter there. You need a ratchet wrench. You need 4 spark plugs. It's recommended that you get a filler gauge gap checker for your spark plugs. You need a thin wall 14 millimeter spark plug socket. I got this one from AutoZone. It's about 10 bucks for a 2-piece set. You need that thin wall socket. That's critical. If you buy the BMW tool, it has a pivot union in it. If you don't get the BMW tool, you get the straight one. Those plugs are in on an angle, so you'll need a union. It's a slight angle, but an angle nonetheless. You don't want to break a spark plug. 6-inch 3/8 extension is a good idea. Then you need a 4 or 5-inch extension. 2 3-inch will work because they'll shorten to like a 5-inch. That way you can reach in the areas you need to reach in. Pair of gloves, preferably have the engine warm, and this job should go very smooth for you. If you buy everything yourself, you're probably looking at $90 to $100, depending on where you get your spark plug tool. If you take it to the dealer, you could pay anywhere from $375 to $475 to get 4 spark plugs removed and replaced on your F30 series BMW. Kick it off by opening the car, pulling your hood release twice. 1, 2, releases the safety on it. Then you come over here and open your hood. There's probably a catcher release in here somewhere. Oh, nope, it just releases and lifts right up. Now here's your plastic cover. That has 3 tabs in there that secures it on to the engine. You work that up and off of there. Get that out of the way. So you got a tab in this corner, tab here, tab there, and then it unlatches from the back. So here's one of the pins there, a pin here, and a pin here that holds this in place. Then you have your insulation. I believe it just helps quiet it down. You pick this up and massage this out of the way. These tabs right there tuck in to that piece right there and that piece right there. Keeps that engine cover secure. Next thing you want to do is release an ignition coil pack. So to get the ignition coil out, it has a release tab on top of it. It's just a force clip. You pull it up kind of hard from this end. You can use a tool to pull it up. You can pull it up with your finger, but it snaps up. And when it does, you can see it unplugs the coil at the same time. So I lifted it up, it pulled that coil, unplugged it. And now if I push it back down, it unplugged it even more. So anyway, we got that up and out of the way. That plug is unplugged. Now the ignition coil will actually lift up and off of the spark plug hole, the cylinder head. Massage that up and off of there. Try not to break anything. And there it is. That's your ignition coil. Now if you look down there, you can see your spark plug. It almost looks like a straight shot, but it's not. It's got a little bit of an angle going down in there. And you want to go ahead and put your pivot on there, your spark plug tool, and your extension, and your ratchet wrench to get that out of there. So this is what I have to get that out. I got the thin-walled 14mm spark plug tool on there. A real spark plug tool has a rubber tip in there like that to grab the spark plug, stop them from falling when you pull them out. I got the pivot there. I got the 6-inch extension, and I got my ratchet wrench. I thread this stuff down in here. I massage it onto the spark plug, and then I just break it loose. Best to use 2 hands so you can get those things loose and then turn it all the way out counterclockwise. I went to pull this spark plug out. Man, I'm using so much effort to get this spark plug out. I'm actually feel the strain in my back. I watched a couple videos, talked to a mechanic. They said basically when you have spark plugs that are apparently stuck in the engine, they've probably been there a while and they're probably stuck due to some form of carbon buildup, mostly related to direct injection. A lot of cars with direct injection experience this. My primary mechanic that I trust, he told me to warm that engine all the way up, which I did. I drove it around for about 10-15 minutes, got it to operating temperature, about 200 degrees. And then he said, work those plugs out that way. Now, I've seen a couple videos where people, they make a quarter of a turn out, eighth of a turn back in, another quarter of a turn out, a quarter of a turn in, and they just kind of massage them out till they start coming out. And again, my mechanic said it's likely carbon buildup on the end of the plug, and it's got them stuck in the cylinder head. So let me get the cover off, get the coil pack off, and then work this out. I'm going to drop the tool down on the plug, try to get it started in position on that plug. I'm here at about 2 or 3 o'clock. I think it's on there. I'm going to slowly turn this thing. Doesn't feel as bad, but you see how big this breaker bar is. That's about 1/8 of a turn. about a quarter of a turn is about there. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to tighten it about 1/8 of a turn. That's about 1/8 of a turn. Now I'm going to turn it about a quarter of a turn again. Yeah, it feels a little better. Tight again. Now I'm going to pull it back in about a quarter of a turn in. Now I'm going to get it about a quarter of a turn out or a half a turn out. Now, one guy recommended putting a couple of rounds of penetrant oil down there, jacking a car up, having the car on an angle so it could kind of sit in the plug the right way, and then trying to get them out that way. But one guy said WD-40 is not good to try to use, so don't try to use WD-40, I assume. It's getting a little easier to come out. Now I'm going to put it back in a quarter of a turn and hope it gets a little easier. One guy, after he got it out, I'll link the video in my description area, he actually turned one of these plugs into a chaser to clean the threads out. You could hear my breaker bar ratcheting like a click. These plugs are not wanting to come out, but I think this one is loose enough where it's going to come out now. So I'm going to keep coming to the out on it. Alright, let me go in a quarter of a turn. He chased it and cleaned the threads in the head. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing all the way out now. I've gone back and forth, I think, enough that I could get this thing out. But this one was tighter than the next one. So this was the tightest one I had. I knew I was in trouble when I had a normal size ratchet wrench on there. And the normal size ratchet did not want to get that plug out. I was straining my back trying to get that plug to start coming out with the normal size ratchet. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it all the way out with this thing now. And cross my fingers that my threads will be okay so I can put a new plug in. Yeah, it's coming out now. It's not easy, but it's coming out. Again, this is from being in a long time and having carbon build up. One guy says that he don't recommend you install plugs without putting some anti-seize on there. Of course, most cylinder heads are aluminum. So if you put some anti-seize on there, put just a little bit of the aluminum anti-seize on there. But the spark plug companies don't recommend that you put anti-seize on them. They said the threads are coated with something that allows them to not seize in the head. But again, my mechanic said these direct injection engines, high performance engines, are prone to this. So I think we're loose enough to go ahead and pull it out. So let me get the normal ratchet wrench and get this thing the rest of the way out. This has become normal. That's still not coming out. There it is, folks. Got it out. Threads don't look too bad, but they were hard coming out. It's hot. Of course, you could tell which one is old, which one is new. That plug has probably been in there the duration of the ownership. And trying to focus in on the gap. You could check the gap on both plugs, make sure it's proper. Go ahead and turn this thing in. It's supposed to be dialed in at around 23 Newton meters, which is 17 foot-pounds. So I'm doing them one at a time, so I'm going to go ahead and put that thing in there. Don't seem to be anything actually on this thread. A little bit of carbon buildup on there. Let me get this thing installed. I'm going to put the socket on it, thin wall socket on there, put the pivot on there, slide it down in there. Start to get it going by hand. You want to get this thing 2 or 3 turns in there by hand before you put a tool in there to start cranking it in there to torque it. You don't want to cross thread it and mess up the threads in the cylinder head. So you slide that spark plug in there. It won't fall off the tool. So go ahead and put your adapter on there, screw it down in the head, screw it all the way in, and then torque it. So here we go. We lower that thing down in there. Like I said, it got to take a little turn. You get that thing started by hand, screw it in a little bit. You can pull the tool off of it if you want, just to make sure that it's going in there. But I promise you, it is going in there. It's not coming out. So once you get it started, put your regular ratchet wrench in there. Screw it in with the regular ratchet wrench, not your power tool. I don't recommend using power tools to drive spark plugs down in there. Then once it stops, put the torque wrench on it. Torque it to 17 foot-pounds or 23 Newton meters. I have 2 plugs done. After you get a plug done, you could do them one at a time or all at a time. But you want to put the coil pack back on. I would recommend replacing coil packs every 150,000 miles or when you start having problems with misfires on one. If you start having problems on one of them, just replace all 4. These are performance cars. You really can't play around with that. But there's a spark plug down in there. We're going to lower this coil pack in. You see it has a pointer there. That pointer has a slot in the cylinder head right there that it goes in. So you push that all the way down. You massage that boot on the plug. You massage the top boot on the cylinder head. You make sure that it's pointed properly in the slot in the head. Then you slide the plug in position. As you start to push that plug in, the cap starts coming down. You lower the cap down, that pulls it in until you hear it snap. And that's it. Go ahead and do the other one. Putting the other one down in here. Massage it on top of the plug. Massage it on top of the head. Make sure it's pointed in its slot. Put your plug in place. Start to slide it on. Massaging it in place. You got to make sure this is all the way open to get that in. And as you see, it starts to lower it. Push it down till you hear a little click. Good to go. 2 more to go. Now these next 2 plugs, because they're hard to reach, they're a little bit under this engine frame brace there in the cowl. You have to switch from this 6-inch extension to either 2 3-inches or 3 and a 2, or what I have here is a 3 and a 1.5 with that swivel. So I basically have 4-inch extension here, and that's perfect size for getting that one plug out with the swivel on it. I got it out, getting ready to go back in with the new one, and that'll be the same for that last coil back there. I'll try to film taking that out since it's in a tight spot, just to show you could get it out with this engine bracing in like another guy did on his video. I have this last coil pack released, the plug disconnected from it. I got it lifted off of the cylinder head. I'm gonna lower the connector top back down so that I can have a little clearance to get this thing out of here. The boot on the end of it is rubber, so once you get it lifted up as high as you can, it can fluctuate and come out of there just like that. Now you want to drop that tool down there, get that spark plug out. Looked like something was wet on that thing, maybe a little oil or something. We'll see if there's oil on the plug when we get it out of there. And yes, it appears that we have a little oil on top of the spark plugs there, which means that there's a valve cover or probably a cam cover leak. Oil getting down in there. The only way oil get down in there is if your cylinder head oil well seal is breached. We got the last one out, getting ready to put it in and close this thing up. Pro tip, you always want to look close at your porcelain on your plugs you're installing. Make sure they're not cracked, because occasionally a plug gets damaged, somebody drops it or something like that, and it can crack the porcelain. You put that in your engine, it could chip a valve, or it can cause misfire, stuff like that. You're thinking, man, I just put new plugs in. That's not it. Well, it could be it if porcelain gets cracked, somebody drops it or something. So check them out, put them in, torque them down, and you should have good success with your tune-up. Again, you lower the plug down in the hole, you start turning it in by hand, give the tool a little tug, make sure the plug is not coming up out of there. Turn that thing in by hand as far as you can before you put a wrench on there. And you could either put your torque wrench on there or your standard ratchet wrench, run it down into the hole until it stops, gets snug, then torque it. Now that all four are done, make sure your coil packs are seated all the way on your cylinder head. All of them are secure. And we're ready to put the insulation back on, the cover back on, fire it up, take it for a test drive. You can check your owner's manual for other recommended servicing and maintenance. And we're going to put this insulation on top, put the cover on top, making sure we guide those tabs back in those two places and locking the cover on these three places. It is a good idea you keep this foam and stuff in good order and in place, because it helps shield your hood from heat and keep your paint nice. So make sure you get this stuff in place. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.